Think about this. You ask somebody on your team to put together a draft of something, a presentation, an executive summary, something like that. And it comes back not even close, not anything close to what you envisioned. What do? Has this happened to you? Is it a them problem or a you problem? Welcome to How to Get What You Want. This podcast is for driven women ready to claim their goals and navigate their careers with clarity and confidence. Join me as we explore real stories, tools, and strategies to help you steer your career exactly where you want to go. Let's get started on helping you get what you want. Hey, friend, I am so happy that you made the choice to be here today. I'm Susie, and this is Get What You Want. And it's so important, like I teased in that open, that people want to get a deliverable that looks like what is in their head. And sometimes that can be a gap. And I think it's a really important element to talk about today because with the addition of technology and the fact that not everybody's in the office all together all the time, communication and making sure your expectations land is really imperative. So when you think about you as a leader and the way you communicate, that's a negotiation. Thinking about the goal in mind, and that is what you need to get. And that's why adopting a negotiator mindset is about getting what you want, because it's thinking about all the aspects that are key to a high stakes situation, a really important negotiation. And that's what negotiators do. So why not leverage that in your leadership? So the research on this is super interesting. Gartner talks about how there's a big problem that leaders do not set expectations in the way that makes their team successful in everything they do. And so that's a really important thing to think about is the stats show that this is a real problem. And without the rules, people make it up on their own. And then if they're not adjusted, if they're not told to do it differently, guess what? That continues to be cemented as theirs. And then when you add on technology like AI, it gets even more challenging. In fact, McKinsey did a study in 2026 and found that only 1 in 6 organizations are ready for AI. And they have a clear C-suite owner. And that's not just picking the technology, that's how it is going to be used and what are those best practices. So we have like just the problem that clear expectations are not being laid. And then on top of that, we're in a season of change where there's a lot in flux. There's a lot of, and just pressure outside around changes in the industry and just stuff in the world. So all of that adds to us slowing down and making sure we're really clear. And this came to mind. I was just having lunch just with a friend, and we were just talking about what she's experiencing. She has a team that does a lot of creative things. We'll call her Dana. And she was telling me that she had a direct report that's worked for her for years, that she has always seen great quality come from her. And she asked her to put together a presentation for an internal project. And they sat down to present it. And that was the moment she realized, it was only a few minutes before they were actually going to go, that it was wrong. It wasn't even close. And my friend Dana was like, I feel like she didn't even like it. It was so strange to her and so foreign. And she said she had to quickly change and make some adjustments before the meeting actually happened. But she was so frustrated. She couldn't talk to the person. She didn't show her what she was doing. She said, frankly, I want to fire her right there on the spot. That's how angry she got with somebody that had been okay because it was such a miss. Yes, I think it was probably, I don't think that people are just putting in stuff and just spitting it out and not, even glancing at it. It sounds like this was not even glanced at, but taking the time to like read it and review it. It's still your work that you're getting. From what she told me, her direct report was thinking it was efficient. So that is a different way, a different lens of looking at the project. So it's important to think about. So I have 3 tips for you. One is really setting those expectations and looking back at yourself and thinking when something doesn't quite go right, inspecting what you did tell them. And AI can be a great help with that. You could look at emails you sent, look at transcripts of conversations, and have it ask it to say, what did I miss? Where's the hole? So that you know if you're giving the right expectations. It's really interesting because I think when we don't say things out loud and we think things through and everything kind of gets mushed because we live in our heads, we forget what is said out loud. And so we think more about the details or we have this vision. And sometimes we may feel like we communicate that and it's not quite right. So I think that this is a great tool to use to inspect how good are you. And maybe you'll see that it's been a long time coming that you needed to inspect this information. The second tip is make sure you set expectations around quality versus efficiency. What is the goal around what the end product looks like? Like, what are you expecting? She was obviously expecting a final draft, and maybe her direct report was thinking it was a first draft. Those are very different expectations to have. And so making sure people understand that. And maybe it's just a matter of saying, I want you to come up with this draft and then we're going to look at it together 2 more times before the meeting, where Dana was like thinking that this was going to be delivered to her 5 minutes before the meeting and it was going to be ready to go. So it's not just the product, it's what is the expectation of it. And as we look at tools that are going to help us speed up the way we work, it's important to make sure that communication around that, what is efficiency and what does quality look like? What are those things? And frankly, as people are getting used to what AI looks like, I'm guilty of this. I'm starting to notice when people rely too heavily on that. And that whole work slop, low trust thing really comes to play. So on both sides, you as a leader and your team, they need to understand that they're still expected to have real quality work and you want to make sure you have your fingerprint on it. So make sure that that is very clear. The third tip is, I know these are expectations and I think sometimes it's really hard to take the time to do it, but look at it as an investment. This is a great time to slow down and think about your communication, think about expectations, look back at when you had given an edict to get something done and what came back to you, what was delivered was off. And think about what was the catalyst to that. What are the things that were a part of that chasm between you and that other person or the team? And especially if you look at your entire team and you've been noticing that more than one of them is delivering things that isn't quite right for what you want, take the time. Sometimes we feel badly that we don't want to feel like a micromanager, but slowing down and taking that time is a good investment in the moment. And how you frame it is key. Framing is such an important aspect of a negotiator mindset. And I think that is the most important aspect for any professional, is to think about how do you frame it to somebody so that they understand that that investment is in them. And it's not to say they're not enough, but it's to say, I want to make you better. And I'm taking this time to develop you. Okay, so here's your action. As you may have heard me say before, that the research shows that if you listen to something or you learn a new skill and you don't put it into action within the first 72 hours, it just goes away. So I want you to take action on this. I want you to look ahead and see what is coming up that you need to communicate to your team, to a team member, and really look at what you're going to communicate to them. Write it down, reread it, inspect it using a tool to say, how clear is this? What would you give me? and start to be real intentional about that clarity. How can you help people get that sooner? So that's what I want you to do in the next 72 hours. Look at something that's coming up. It's also a great investment in your time to do it early. So even if it's a week later, is to have all the components done so that when you communicate that, you already have the quote unquote script that you're going to use. And then you have that evidence that you can put against what was delivered. And then as a leader, if that is off, then you're a lot clearer about what you set as expectations and what was delivered so that you can help them get better. Or you can make the adjustments that you need to make. So I'm so glad you were here today. Thank you to my friend Dana who gave me that great snippet. And I loved her passion around the fact she was just ready to fire her. And I want you to hear that because that wasn't a part of like her personality. And it was just it just hung in the air for me. And so think about you as somebody that's delivering and you as a leader. And in this moment, how do you set great expectations and how are you delivering in a way that's going to be meaningful and really show that you get it? If you know somebody that needs to hear this, send this. Talk about it. This could be the unlock to have the conversation so that you both invest together. I'm so glad that you made the choice to be here today. I think it is so important that we all think about the great strategies and tactics that negotiators use, because when we look at it as more than a skill, we understand that it truly is a mindset. Until next time, I'm Susie. I will see you then.